Your soul cries out that you are living a survival story right now.
I was scrolling on my phone and then looked something up and looked something else up, and then suddenly I was like, oh my gosh, I just lost a battle.
I couldn't get to sleep without making another episode for you guys.
I've always been fighting for my future husband and my future life and my future children as well.
Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, the mind can achieve.
You have the power to overcome the adversary. The adversary, however, is aware of who you are.
And it's that scumbag Satan. It's the reason we're here today, because we all are tired of the crap that he pulls.
The role that Satan plays in things is science. It's not religion, it's science. If you understand it, you can win the battle. If you don't, you won't.
I'm not naive enough to assume that my children won't struggle with this.
I will show unto them that my wisdom is greater than the cunning of the devil.
So, I don't care what you do something. Let's do something.
I fight because I'm worth it.
Don't underestimate your value.
Learn who you really are.
I fight because I'm powerful.
You have an impact on people.
And I know who I am.
You are an elect son or daughter of God.
I'm a disturber of the dark side. That's who I am.
Go forward, my beloved young friends. Courage, and on to the victory.
Welcome back to the Eternal Warrior Podcast, helping young people in their quest for self-mastery, sharing stories from the battlefront in the war against Satan and pornography. Today, we have a very special guest, Seth Bowman. And, Garrett, would you like to tell us a little bit of what you know about Seth?
Yeah, of course. Seth is a manly man if I ever saw one.
Yes.
Just a month ago, he was telling us about all these competitions that he goes to where he throws large logs around and does really cool things. The important thing about Seth, though, is that about a year ago, I met Seth at a men's retreat, and he played an instrumental role in creating an environment in which I could open up and be vulnerable, and has helped me a ton since then in my recovery. And from what I understand, he continues to help people every single day and does the best that he can to help those on the battlefront. And I'm really excited to hear some of his story and also some of the struggles that he dealt with and how he came to the program. So it's going to be an exciting program today.
Yeah, I bet. And I have to absolutely agree with Garrett 100%. Like, from the time I met him, I think we were working on a podcast together, and I just couldn't get out of my head that this is a manly man right here. You meet him and he just kind of towers over you. But he's also really kind and sensitive and has helped a lot of us through the fight. Before we get into your story, Seth, I just want to update everyone on the stats, which I'm super excited about. To date, we have, as of last week, 96 new listeners. 96.
That is awesome.
That is crazy. Last time it was 64, and that's like almost doubled or tripled, I guess. Math. That is not my strong suit. But yeah, and 291 listens past 7 days, including today. Thank you guys. Keep sharing it. Keep inviting your friends to come and feel comfortable with us. We're glad that you're continue to support us and listen. All right. Well, Seth, as they say in group, what's cool about you?
Well, I don't know. I've felt really prompted through these last few years to reach out and to help other men. And talking about last year's retreat that Garrett was talking about, as I was preparing for the first training that I did at that retreat, I was praying, and trying to figure out what I was going to say, putting things together, that type of thing. And all of a sudden, I just had this, and I don't even know how to explain it, but it was this feeling, vision of men dying on the plains, and that there were thousands of men dying on the plains, and we needed to go out and rescue them. And it was such a powerful experience for me. And since then, I've been trying to figure out how to do that, how to help more men to be able to come in off the plains, to begin to give them the sustenance they need to be able to grow, be productive, and not continue to damage their families and their own lives. And so that's something that I have really been focusing on and trying to find different ways to help more men in that way. And so I've been prompted to write some different courses that have made a difference in some people's lives. And that's what I really love and am constantly being pushed to do.
Wow. That's incredible. I forgot to mention, as well as being a physical giant, he is also a spiritual giant. we love hearing your comments and how the Spirit has impressed you over the years. Did you have something, Garrett?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Seth, you've mentioned, feeling prompted to seek out other men and to help other men, but how did you get to that point? I mean, I can imagine that a lot of men who have dealt with this don't feel like they're qualified to help others in the slightest. But you seem to blow right through that. No lack of confidence on your part. So how is that? How is that for you?
You say that now, but so 2017, 2018, let me back up further. So I have dealt with pornography addiction since my teens. And it's interesting, when I started this journey, I thought it started later in my teens, and then I've realized that it started earlier and earlier, and different things that had happened that I had pushed aside, or, oh, that wasn't anything, and didn't realize the effect that it had had. So I managed to address it before I went on a mission. Did good on my mission, and then came home and things came back. And then ended up getting married thinking, okay, this is going to take care of it. And
right.
It didn't.
Ooh, shocking.
Yeah. When my wife had our first child, our son, I was very convicted, and while she was up at her parents' shortly after he was born, confessed to her, and she was very hurt and basically said, if you ever do that again, your kids will be calling somebody else dad. And I tried to, and I did. I probably had 5, 6. I don't really know, because it's sort of hard to pinpoint how long. I say sobriety. A lot of it was white knuckling, trying to, because I didn't have any tools. I didn't have any real help. The bishop sort of went, okay, don't do that anymore, and I just didn't. But when things started becoming overwhelming again, things started building back up. But for my work, I did automation and controls engineering. So I was on the road, some years spending 250 nights in a hotel room, and just a massive amount of time being on the road and very isolated. There were times I told my wife, I I wish I drank just so that I'd have somebody to talk to, because of, just eating alone every night, just in a hotel room by yourself every night. And then at one point, I was on I think it was a 6-week straight trip. And I was talking to my wife, and she was telling me how hard it was with the kids and being alone. And I was trying to tell her how hard it was for me, how much I was struggling. And she says she didn't mean it this way, and I know that she really didn't. But what happened for me was, when I said that, she said, well, we've gotten used to the money, and we've gotten used to you being gone, and we really like the money. And at that point, it was just like, okay, so nobody really wants me around. All I am is a paycheck. And so I just might as well take care of myself. And that really sent it to, okay, nobody cares. Nobody wants me around, which is part of my story. Part of those messages that constantly come up is, nobody cares what I think. Nobody wants me around. My opinion doesn't matter. The only time anybody cares is when what I can produce. And that pretty much just shut me down. Then fast forward about 3 years, I was working in Wyoming. I couldn't stop myself from looking at pornography and things. And I felt like I was just hurting everybody around me. And I remember every day just praying that there'd be black ice, or, every time I went under a bridge, that there would be black ice, because I felt like all I did was destroy everybody else's life. All I did was hurt everybody else. And I knew I couldn't do that, but at the same time, I was praying that there'd be black ice or something like that. And that May or June, my wife, we had a fight, and my wife confronted me and asked me straight out if I was looking at porn again. And I confessed. And then it was sort of weird, because the summer was fairly good. But then as soon as the summer was done, we had a cool family vacation. But as soon as the summer was done, everything just blew up. And I was sitting in an apartment that I had in Wyoming, because I was up there that much for work. And my wife basically said, you better figure your crap out or don't come home. And that was when I found, I downloaded like Dragons They Fight, like, I don't know, 2 years before that, and had gotten like a chapter or two into it, and that was it. And I found that again and started reading. And when I read chapters 4 and 5, which were the chemical scale and the satanic spin, as soon as I finished those 2 chapters, I put it down and signed up, and immediately started attending groups. And yeah, it was interesting how I ended up going. But then, were you starting to say something, Eli?
I'm just in awe of the story so far. That's that's a really rough situation you went through with, your job, and how communication was going through with your wife. And I'm already starting to see some themes of communication and being aware of your emotions and all these things that you've taught us before. But you should go on with your story. How did things ramp up in the program?
So but the very first time I went, actually, I need to take one step back, actually. So I signed up on Tuesday, and on Thursday morning, before I met with group the very first time, somebody who had offered me a job 6 years before called me. I hadn't talked to him in 2 years and said, "Hey, when are you in town next? We need to talk." And I remember calling my wife and going, "This may be the answer to our prayers," because we both knew that something had to change. And when I ended up interviewing with him, I told him that I felt like this was an answer to our prayers. And because he offered me a job that is the same job I have had ever since then. And I've told guys many times that there's no way I would have been able to be where I am if I hadn't taken that change of jobs, because being on the road that much is just very damaging to any kind of connection, any type of being able to be connected. But so Thursday night, I went to group, and I remember calling my wife and going, "I don't know if this is the right place for me." Because a couple of the guys in the group were, cracking jokes a lot. And in the chat, there was like a second group going on in the chat from the actual group going on. And so I'm like, I don't know. I don't feel like these guys are taking it seriously enough.
Oh no, they are weirdos.
Well, so Brene Brown talks about in one of her, I think it's Unlocking Us podcast, she talks about the FFT. And she talks about it from the place of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is the frickin' first time. And she talks about how in Alcoholics Anonymous, they say that you need to go to a group like every day for a week. Because, and she talks about it, that first time, it's like, these people are weird. I have no idea what they're talking about. And then that second time, it's like, these people are still weird, but it sort of makes sense. And she says by the fourth or fifth time, it's like, oh my gosh, these are my people. And that was literally the process for me, is that first time I was like, I don't think these guys are taking it seriously. I'm not sure about this. And luckily, my PWT was like, he goes, I know a couple of them. You need to give them a chance. That's sort of how they deal with stress and that type of thing. And I've told many people that those guys who cracked the most jokes were the guys who called me out on my crap the most. They could see what I wasn't telling the full truth, was trying to hide. And those were some of the most powerful guys, and a couple of them I still keep very good contact with, because it was so important for me.
Yeah.
But I still remember that first time going, yeah, I'm not sure about this. And then the second week, my wife asked me again, and I'm like, I don't know. Still seems like they're not really, but maybe. And by that fourth or fifth time, it was like, oh my gosh, this is where I need to be.
Man, it's just classic group. You gotta, it did. I think it blows everybody's mind the first time you go. Like, we're just handling this. Like, it works, and we're able to make fun of it, and we're able to, be men or be boys for a little bit. And that, I think it's underestimated how healing that can be. Like you said, those connections last so long, and can be so meaningful to us. It's creating a community.
Yeah. But so from there, I just started participating in the group, and my wife was in very deep betrayal trauma, and she was, I say it this way, she was curled up in a ball about 20 hours a day, every day. And she kept saying how much she hated herself because she felt like she was a horrible mom because she wasn't able to take care of the kids the way she wanted to, because all she wanted to do was just Not that she wanted to, but all she could do was be curled up in bed. And so I had a ton to fight for. But I still remember, I don't remember, second week, third week, something like that, very early on, when we did sparring at the end of the group, one of the guys asked me, why are you fighting? And I said, well, I'm fighting for my wife and for my kids, and I don't want her to be hurting the way she is. And he looked at me and said, that's not good enough. And I'm like, what? And I'm like wanting to fight him because I'm like, what are you talking about? This isn't good enough. You got to be kidding me. And he goes, it will never be good enough until you're fighting for yourself, until you make that transition to from fighting for somebody else to fighting for yourself, and that you're important enough to be fought for. And that was a huge thing for me because I didn't think that I was worth fighting for at all. And not too long after that, I listened to a podcast, and they were talking about faith and hope. And they in that podcast talked about how faith was the belief that God loves his children, that Christ died for our sins, but that hope was the belief that God loves me, that Christ died for me. And I definitely was at that faith point, and I had no hope. I didn't believe that I could get any answers to my prayers. I didn't believe that I mattered. And that has been a heck of a journey for me, to where now I've had a lot of promptings and things that have come, and I very much feel that regular intimacy, that regular connection with God, and know that I have hope and that it is for me. But that took a long time.
That's so powerful. And if anyone is joining us for the first time and is wondering what sparring is, we have a great episode about that in Simon's episode, in episode 10. That was a beautiful example of sparring. Maybe a little risky there. Like, I'm not sure if I would go up to you and say that's not good enough.
It was.
But it sounds like that's exactly what you needed. So how did this lead into where you are now? When did you start leading your own groups?
Well, let me take one more step here. So, as I said, I pretty much didn't have any temptation for a while, because I was so overwhelmed with seeing the impact of what had happened. And I was so committed to, I'm never going to let this happen again. And I was in the program around 2 months, and it was, I don't remember what it was, but I remember being in that shame place for a couple of days. And I got the first temptation I had in a couple of months. And I was really scared, like going, oh crap, I'm going back. And I remember talking to my mentor, and I can't remember if he called me or I called him, but I was talking to him, and I'm just going to give a language warning here because I'm going to use the words that he used. But, so, he's like, how are you doing? And I'm like, I'm fine. And he's like, no, really, how are you doing? I'm doing good. No, how are you really doing? And I finally broke down and told him that I'd been in a shame storm for a couple of days. And his response was, so you just like getting your ass kicked, huh? And I'm like, what? Huh?
Oh, man.
And he just goes, He goes, well, you must just like getting your ass kicked because you haven't called anybody. You haven't reached out to anyone. You haven't done any of the things you needed to do. You just liked getting your ass kicked. And I'm like,
Oh man, so true.
And I think we'd had the power of a team lesson like a week or two before. So I actually knew what that meant. But but I ended up making a commitment that I would call somebody every single workday. And so I ended up using my time on my drive home. I sort of had realized that as I drove home, a lot of stress built up, and I was in a bad mood by the time I got home a lot of the time. And so I made a commitment that every day when I drove home, I was going to call somebody and talk to somebody. And if I didn't talk to somebody, I'd keep trying numbers until I got home. And so there were times where I, talked to the same person because nobody else answered another day type of thing. And I've definitely had to get past all of those things of, you're just going to bother them. You just talked to them a few days ago.
Yeah.
They don't want to talk to you again. All of those things, and learning to trust my team, learning to believe and feel that it was worth it. And it brought me a lot of power. Something else I did is I have to have my workouts.
I can tell.
For years, my wife and I had joked, my wife would be like, you need to go to the gym and come back happy, because like those Snickers commercials where it's like, where the guy turns to Betty White and is, all pissy. And that was me if I didn't get my workout for a couple of days. And so when this all came out, that became a real issue that I was like, okay, I need this on one side, but how do I make that safe? And so when I started the program, I had previously been listening to music, and it was fairly hard industrial type music as I was working out, something that gets your blood pumping. But early on, somebody challenged me to listen to something better. And with the reading goals that we have of inspired literature, I started listening to conference talks every day in the gym. And when I first started this, I'm like, there is no way I'm going to be able to get a good workout listening to conference talks. But
I don't know, man.
I pushed through, and that's all I listen. Well, I now listen to a lot of audiobooks and podcasts as well. But so I started doing that, and I was able to use those to focus on. And what I did as well is that I set a goal for myself to find something to share with someone every day in what I listen to. And
powerful.
So just finding something to share with someone, whoever that was, whatever name came to my mind. And I started learning to pray to ask, who do I need to reach out to today? Who should I call today? And I've had a lot of experiences where I'm scrolling through the numbers in my phone, and all of a sudden a number just like jumps off the phone screen. And it's like, why would I call them? I haven't talked to them in like 2 years, and had this, that's who you need to talk to. And okay.
Wow. So
sure.
Can I ask where you got that idea from? Like, was that something you created, or did you get it from somewhere else?
Which portion? The listening to the conference talks, or to share something with somebody every day?
to share something with someone every day.
I would be sure that I heard it from somewhere, but I have absolutely no idea where at this point. I definitely say that I am an aggregator. I don't, I'm able to pull and put different thoughts together from places that I hear.
Right. You just said it so perfectly. It's exactly how Maurice has been teaching us in the Thursday 8:30 group. Like, hey, I know a guy who just finds a random person to text and sends a spiritual thought while he's working out in the gym. And I'm like, well, I think we found the guy. So that's awesome. Oh, where were we? Was there any more?
Well, yeah, I just started. So I started that process of talking to somebody every day. And then eventually got asked to be a mentor or apprentice, and then went through mentor training. But for some reason, this seems like something I should talk about. So the first time I got asked to lead a group, it was the Saturday morning group. And I said, I can't do that. Saturday isn't going to work for my family. And I have a daughter who competed on a club team, and I was just like, there's no way Saturdays are going to work. So about 3 months later, I got called again and said, hey, we'd like for you to do the Saturday morning group. And my first initial reaction was, no, that's not going to work. And I'm like, well, this is the second time. Maybe I need to ask. And so I came home and mentioned it to my wife, and she's like, that's never going to work. And I'm like, I know that. I already said no once, but I really think we need to pray about it. And she's like, that's never going to work. And I said, okay, I think we need to pray about it. And so I prayed and got it's going to be hard. So do it anyway. And it was like, okay. And my wife, I can't remember exactly how she said it, but it was a very similar answer of, yeah, okay, do it anyway. And so I started doing the Saturday morning group. And it's interesting because COVID happened a couple of weeks later. Because that was the end of February, and that happened in April. So it made it actually really easy for those first year or two to be able to do Saturday morning because nothing else was really happening. But yeah. So that's sort of how I got to there.
One of the many blessings of COVID.
Yes.
Gift that keeps on giving.
So in your story, you described to us how you went from being someone who didn't feel qualified or qualified to share with others and to be vulnerable in that way to someone who definitely was. What would you say is the hardest hurdle you had to jump over in that process?
I don't know. Because I remember, okay. Sorry, things are coming to mind, and I'm trying to put thoughts together here for a second. The first one was being able to call people. And this was one of the things that I realized is, and as I started talking to guys, how often something that is our spiritual gift or that is something that we so greatly need, Satan attacks from before we even know what's going on. I have hated talking on the phone my entire life. It has been a huge thing of hating talking on the phone. And to the point of my wife would just laugh at me because even calling somebody back who had called me was incredibly hard for me. And I'd be like, okay, let's walk through what I need to say. And it was I got so much anxiety of even thinking about using the phone. But that was the thing that brought me so much power. So getting through
Oh,
that,
man.
also getting through the willingness to call people, those negative messages of nobody wants to talk to you, nobody wants you around, you can't help anybody, nothing you say matters anyway. That was huge. And that still pops up periodically. And then again, as I going back to the what I listened to as I worked out, I started getting to all of these different podcasts, and like I had, 15, 20 different podcasts that I was listening to, and I was listening to an episode a day while I worked out, sometimes two. It helped me build up those things to share. And sort of like Maurice talks about that analogy of Legos. I now had a bunch more Legos. I had a whole lot more things that I was thinking about to be able to help when something came up for different people. And so that gave me the opportunity to be able to share more things. And, but like when I was asked if I was willing to do individual coaching, I'm like, there's no way I can help other people. And the person who asked me was like, you already have been, you already are. This is just making it more formal. But the other thing, though, is when I started mentoring, going through that phase where I took too much responsibility for somebody else's lost battles. And that's a huge thing that happens as well, is that, well, I tried everything I could and taking responsibility for their actions because I should have done more and that type of a thing. And having to go, this is Heavenly Father's work. I'm only helping with it, and I will do the best I can, but this is his work, and he will use whatever I can give.
Wow.
I think
That's a lot right there, is, not taking responsibility for someone else's lost battles. That's something haven't considered. So you've done a lot. I think you also bring up a great point of we're all helping in some way. Like anytime we're interacting with the guys in group, we're being a positive influence. Hopefully. I mean, I hope you're not being a negative influence. Doesn't sound like you were. And I haven't met anyone yet who has been a negative influence. And so, yeah, to anyone listening, and you're going to group or you're helping out in some other way, don't underestimate your value. You may be getting all these thoughts that Seth was talking about, like, oh, what can I do? I'm not good enough. How can I ever help anyone? You have an impact on people. And like Seth said, it doesn't have to be any formal sort of calling. Garrett, did you have something?
Yeah, I think it's reminiscent of a principle that we teach oftentimes when we're talking about the gospel, but I think it applies to what Seth was saying, and the actions that he took, and that's the scripture that goes, "Seek not to declare my word, but first seek to obtain my word, and then shall your tongue be loosed." And the idea behind that is that, or what you were saying to me, Seth, or at least the way it came across, was that you went and sought out information. You went and looked at podcasts. You went and looked at conference talks. You obtained the word, and then when you were reaching out to people, there was no reason for you to feel anxiety about not having anything to say or not feeling validified in your opinion, because you'd already obtained the word. Like you'd already gone out and you'd picked up the tools, you'd picked up those Legos, you got all the tools you could, and then you were just sharing it with others, right? You were aggregating and sharing, and that's really powerful that you follow that process. And it seems like such a obvious process, right? It seems like those would be the obvious steps. That first you'd find out what you needed to find out, then you'd go and share it. but I feel like a lot of men, including myself, I've felt that lack of qualification, that unworthiness, so to speak. It's shame. It's not. I'm not actually unworthy. It's just shame. And rather than going out and seeking to better myself, seeking that knowledge, seeking that information, I just left it at that and said, well, I can only share what I know right now, and I don't know much. So therefore I shouldn't share.
Well, and that's actually
Go for it.
so I'm gonna take a tangent here, but I think it'll tie in really well. So as a kid, and growing up, and it's interesting, I had a very powerful experience that is why I went on a mission, because I was sure at 18 and 19 I wasn't supposed to go on a mission. And I didn't go on a mission till I was 21. And I had a very powerful experience that made me choose to go on a mission when I was 21. And it was one of those things where I was feeling like everything in my life was falling apart. And I'd prayed for months about what I should do, where I should go. And I was sitting there thinking about things like going backpacking in Europe, and let's just say mission was not even in the picture. I was sure that was not supposed to happen. And I had a buddy who I was on the phone with, and I'm like, dude, I'm about to just throw in the towel, just leave and go backpack Europe or something. I don't know what. And he's like, everything you're telling me sounds like a mission. Nope, I'm not supposed to go on a mission. Nope, not happening. And he's like, everything you're saying sounds like a mission. Nope, not happening. He's like, just pray about it just once for me. Nope, not happening. And he finally talked me into saying a prayer. And I remember going to bed and praying before I went to bed. And the next morning, waking up going, I'm going on a mission in April, the middle of April. And it was super powerful. But I never thought I'd felt the Holy Ghost, because of all of the ways that the Holy Ghost gets described. I'd never felt that burning in your bosom, that tingling up and down your spine. And so I'm going, I must not have ever felt the Spirit, because I didn't know how to explain the Spirit. I thought I'd never felt the Spirit. And so I went to the MTC again. Still, they are always talking. I don't know if they still are, but we're always talking about feel and recognize the Spirit and identify it for the investigators. How am I supposed to do that? I don't even know what it feels like. And so I went out, and I was out about a month, and my companion sent me on splits with the bishop's son, who was like 17. And we went to teach the restoration of the gospel to an ordained Anglican minister.
Wow.
So needless to say, I didn't have the scriptures or the ability to argue with him as I'm trying to teach this to him on splits. And in all honesty, I'm not sure that I completely knew I believed it at the time. And so basically all I had was to bear testimony of, I'm not completely sure I was sure on at the time.
Oh, wow.
But I remember as we walked out of there, we were about halfway down the driveway, and I said to the young man who was with me, how could he not feel the Spirit? And it just hit me that it was, oh my gosh, I know what it feels like now. And that was a huge, powerful thing for me. But tying it back to what Garrett was talking about, a lot of feeling and recognizing the Spirit is, when we talk about those Legos or those principles, how many times as I'm listening to something or reading something, I have had Heavenly Father go, okay, take this piece over here, goes with this piece over here, Okay, those two go together. See this? Okay, now put the piece that you just heard right there. That connects it all. And that is one of the ways that I feel the Spirit and know that God is there with me. And that is something that happens for me so often and is so powerful, is that, okay, take this piece and that piece and put it together, and then this goes together over here. And, it's sort of that puzzle that I have a whole bunch of pieces sitting all over the table that I don't know how they go together. And when the time is right, when I have the right pieces or when I get the right connecting piece, all of a sudden Heavenly Father goes, okay, this one over here.
Yeah.
And this one over here. This goes together. And then I'm able to share that with people.
Yeah. This is a great principle you're giving us right now. And I wonder if we can take a step back and really look at what is the start of the Legos principle? Like what is the theory behind dividing things into Legos? What are the Legos?
Well, Maurice talked about it that, when we have information and we only know what we know, and we can only build so many things with the information that we have. But if we want to be able to build new things, we have to get more Legos. We have to get more information, more different points of view, more different thought processes. And so for me, that is what I've loved. And taking, the gospel, taking certain podcasts, taking a lot of different recovery books, and seeing things. It's helped me a lot with mentoring, being able to learn different ways that different groups, between SA, between Pure Desire Ministries, between Doug Weiss, where they talk about different recovery principles. And it's like, okay, wait, these are all the same, even though they're using different terms. I had one guy who I was working with, who he's like, I've been in like 5 different programs and they all have different goals. He had done Lifeline and some different things. And he's like, I don't even know what I should do. And I'm like, wait a second. Stop. All of them have some kind of recovery reading. Every program has some kind of recovery reading. We need to be learning new stuff. Every one of the programs has some kind of connection to a higher power. However that looks, whether that's prayer, whether that's meditation, they all have some kind of connection with a higher power. They all have some kind of a no goal. Obviously we want to stop doing whatever we've been doing. And so I came up with, because Doug Weiss has the 5 dailies, and I can't remember all of them off the top of my head right now. But I was like, okay, we have these 6 that we call manpower. Doug Weiss has the 5 dailies. 5 of the 6 are exactly the same. So I don't care what you do something.
Right.
Let's do something. It doesn't matter what we call it. Whether it's a black box review, whether it's a lost battle analysis, whether it's a crash site analysis. Again, do something. There's different ways people talk about it. It's a true principle. I don't care which words we use. But so the ability to see that and say, okay, this is the true principle, and everybody's gotten it, even though they talk about it differently, gives me a lot of different ways to talk about it for people.
Yeah. I love that principle because it's a very prominent one in Think and Grow Rich, which is, and who's to say where he got it from, because eternal principles have just lasted forever. But I love that idea of just like the things you are looking for and the resources you need and the people you need to talk to are out there, scattered somewhere, and you need to go looking. You just need to keep on taking in information and finding these things. Did you have something, Garrett?
I think you are amazing, Seth. I hope that doesn't sound like empty flattery. It is so hard to go through life and to deal with some of these things and to feel alone and to feel disqualified from life's greatest blessings because of mistakes or because of an addiction that we can't figure out how to control. And not only have you taken that and learned to grow through that, but you've turned around and you've began to provide that for others. This is a personal experience on my part. I mentioned this at the beginning, but when I went to that first retreat I went to a year and 3 months ago, whatever it was, I was in a pretty bad spot. And Seth, you were there. You were one of the first people I talked to. And not only did you look like a cuddly giant, you were so open and so willing to be vulnerable, but also willing to call, like you said, to call me out on my bullshit and say, hey, no, like, you need to pull it together. And that was an incredible experience for me, a changing experience for me. I'm doing this podcast in part due to your efforts at that retreat that I went to. And the change that you were indirectly responsible for, not for the whole thing, but for part of it, right, has led to, the continuation of this podcast and to my assistance that I gave for the retreat this year. And so many wonderful things have come from that. And we didn't even talk for longer than a weekend. So I hope that you know how much of a difference you've made in people's lives. And if you haven't heard it from other men, I hope you know from my part that you've made a difference in mine. And from what I understand of Eli's background and everything, you've made a difference in his. And that's like, kudos to you. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank
a
you.
lot of great
one
lessons.
of the things
a lot
that
of
I
spirit
loved
whenever you're
because he
around.
put it so well
It's amazing.
in the book Heart of a Warrior by Michael Thompson. I love this one thing, and it's something I have really tried to live by, and it's part of why I have become so open, is because I want to help other people, and I wish people had been more open. So many guys say, why can't Elders Quorum be like this? Why can't we have this vulnerability? And so I try to do that with everybody. And I know that everybody may not be at that place where they're willing to talk about their struggles. But Michael Thompson says, an oriented man is a man who has nothing to fear, prove, or hide. And it comes from regularly walking with Christ. And so I constantly look at those places where I'm trying to hide who I really am, where I'm fearful that others will judge me, where I'm trying to prove my worth. And a lot of guys have asked me, how are you willing to share these things? And one of the things I've come to is that I know who I am. My wife knows who I am. And I know that God knows who I am. Who else do I have to worry about? And that has really become where I've gotten to, is that I know who I am, and I know that God knows who I am. And I know that my wife knows who I am, and we are working on things. And so who else do I have to worry about? And I'd rather be open and share and help somebody than worry about what somebody might think.
Wow. That's powerful.
It is extremely powerful. And I think one of the coolest lessons that we can learn from Seth's story and everything that has gone on in his life is that, and Seth, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, it doesn't seem like there was nothing that happened to you that couldn't happen to any man who sought it out.
Yeah.
There's no, there was no parting of the Red Seas, so to speak, right? Like anything could happen. Anything that happened to you could happen to anybody who seeks it out. And they can create that same attitude of vulnerability and strength, which, those two words don't normally go together, but in this case they do, right? You've gained the power to be vulnerable, and that increased your strength as a man exponentially. There's a reason our acronym in our program is manpower, right? Because being powerful as a man it involves vulnerability, and that strengthens you, and anybody can do that.
Yeah. That's one parallel I tie between you and Maurice, Seth, is you have the ability to make other men believe that they can achieve what you've achieved, and that, this might be me someday. That's amazing. It's getting close to time. Do you want to ask the question, Garrett?
Absolutely, Seth. I want to ask you a question. You mentioned it earlier, and we talked about it, and you talked about how a little bit of the sparring
because
that I think your mentor did with
feeling
you. But I want to ask you now,
I love
Seth, why do you still fight?
The promptings, and that he will allow me to be part of this battle to help other men. And I love when he opens up pure knowledge to my mind. And so I fight to regularly be in a place where I can recognize and get those promptings, where I can have pieces put together in my head. And, even pieces that I've put together one way, showing the three-dimensional side of it of, oh, hey, there's a piece that goes on the back. And there's more to grow with it. And that is why I fight, because I love the position and the being engaged and feeling Christ's love. When I was in the MTC, one of the things that one of the instructors there taught was charity is the pure love of Christ. And she said that she'd done a lot of looking, and that of could also be for, from, and like. Those were other words that could be replaced with of. So charity is the pure love like Christ, the pure love from Christ, and the pure love for Christ. And so when we are able to feel that love from Christ, and we start to feel that love for Christ, then we want to love like Christ. And that is why I fight. To be able to feel that love and have that charity. And yeah, that's how I'd answer that.
Thank you, Seth. I appreciate your struggles and your fight, and that you are determined to be an eternal warrior. Thank you for all of your thoughts, your battles, everything.
Yeah. I'm feeling the love, man. I'm feeling the love. Well, thank you all for listening. As always, if you feel the need to reach out to get support, you can find wonderful tools and resources on our website, lifechangingservices.org. If you want to reach out to us, or get in contact with Seth or anyone that you've heard on the podcast, feel free to email us at podcast@lifechangingservices.org. And we hope to hear from you soon. But until then, I promise to be of service to you and will allow you to be of service to me until both you and I successfully defeat this demon that assails us.
If you're listening to this podcast, you have probably found that you are in need of, you are strongly desiring, a level of self-mastery that you have not been able to achieve on your own, or you are a loved one or a parent who knows someone who would like to achieve that level of self-mastery. It's not fun to be in that situation. Been there, done that. I've become a specialist in this area by spending 30 years initially searching for and harvesting eternal principles found in the world of psychology, science, and the words of the prophets, many of them found in the Book of Mormon, for my own sake first, and then I found that they're of great value to others. Instead of just hoarding these concepts, we put them into a book form that is easy for you to access. Like Dragons Did They Fight? You'll understand the reason why it's called that when you start reading it. But go to likedragonsfree.com, get your own free copy of it, download it, and then when you're ready to talk over your circumstances and make a battle plan, call 877-HERO 877. In other words, 877-4376. Talk to our headquarters people, and if necessary, they'll arrange for you to have a consultation with me. I am sad that you're going through this, but I've watched thousands and thousands of young warriors gain the confidence and strength they need to be able to have the lives they want now and the futures they desire to have. We will see you soon.